Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's Saturday. I know you're busy, so I truly appreciate your time that you took away from your loved ones, or perhaps you watched together. Thank you again for following me. It's the first time, if it's the first time for you to join a live stream, you're very welcome to comment. You're very welcome to tell me if anything I report on contradicts your sources, resources. So comment with any facts, and I gladly stay corrected. Express emotions, please. Everything and everybody is welcome here. So we have a lot to get through today, really a lot. I have a whole long list of everything to report to you today on, because we're facing so much misinformation. And if you are sign up for the newsletter that I wrote overnight, I truly just summarized everything we have read that was not true for the past week. And just if we think about it, what kind of toll does it take on our psyche, on our mental state? So I truly encourage you to be vigilant, to be very choosy as to what type of information you consume, because your mental food is as important as your physical nutrition. Okay, so if you see something like this, for instance, which was just reported today, Trump has long been criticized for his public treatment of women. The ones in his private life argue he's different. And I mean, I think, and maybe I'm old school or whatnot, but I think journalism actually is, if somebody tells you it's snowing, or if somebody is telling you it's hot outside, and another person says, no, it's actually not snowing and it's not hot, it's cold. Your job is to get outside, measure the temperature, and to inform the public what actually is happening outside. It's not the job to quote everybody, because we are then just amplifying everybody's voice. And I understand the point of Twitter being sort of a public square, but therefore, even more so, we need voices who will do the proper justice and fact check things. Because if somebody has been raping girls, has been abusing women, is convicted for abusing women, to say that he's different in private, well, I'm glad that it sort of pans out to be different for people, for women, and to spend time in private with him. Well, thank God. But let's not make that news. Let's not make that normality. This is not normal. Let's not report on this stuff. Almost cursed. Okay, so first, I want to offer a readout which was shared ultimately today by Robert Costa of CBS. I understand there's a lot of misinformation. I'm only sharing it because I've heard essentially the same information yesterday from a source very close to the president. So again, we can never say it's 100% sure unless I've heard it from the president or we've heard it from the president, right? But we can assume that it's there, it's close to be true, okay? So what has been shared is that President Biden is deeply frustrated in Delaware this weekend with those he perceives as unhelpful and who he believes are participating in an informal, somewhat slow-moving, misguided action against his candidacy. I've heard essentially the same yesterday. Biden and members of his inner circle believe both Speaker Pelosi and former President Obama are privately underestimating his political appeal and the strength of his coalition, especially against Trump, and believe they and others are being too muted on Democratic dissent. So I've heard essentially the same, that he is basically hurt. That was the word that has been used. President Biden, as one of friends puts it to this reporter, is old school and believes if you don't think he should run, you should if you don't think he should run, you should run against him publicly, or otherwise be quiet and be supportive, which essentially he said that in an interview on NBC. So this is true. A flurry of rumors about Biden allies thinking hard about a Biden exit has infuriated many of Biden's most trusted associates, especially talk that historian John Mission, I mispronounced probably, correct me how it is pronounced correctly, was maybe being tapped to write or to somehow work on his exit speech, which he denied to CBS News. So that sort of hurt the most, that it was circulating, certainly on Thursday night, that people are working just Thank you for sticking with me. So apologies, things happen. I don't know what happens, but essentially, President Biden is Mitchum. Okay, thank you so much, Mitchum. Okay, thank you. So that was to the writer, allegedly the writer of the speech that was debunked. So the point being that he listens and the team listens, but they listen just in good faith because they want to be polite and sort of give an opportunity, obviously, for everybody to speak out, but they do not take that as a hint for them to drop out. He is staying. The Biden Harris campaign is staying. Everything remains as is. Let's just put that all aside. Okay? All the rumors aside, all the anxiety aside, they're staying. They've confirmed it many times. Biden officials also are telling that they're telling Democratic critics that President Biden is eager to prove them wrong and plans to hit the campaign trail once he recovers from COVID, with potential trips to Georgia and Texas in the coming days. If you think about it, his trip to Austin was canceled because he was testing positive or has tested positive for COVID. So he canceled that trip. So I guess that would be the first trip that he takes, or one of the first trips. So by the end of the month, he's hitting the campaign trail. He also might do so even sooner, as soon as next week, which is a fact. So then Biden campaign chief was on Morning Joe yesterday. Here are a few of the clips of her message that she shared with the audience. Perhaps you saw it. If not, listen in.
And Joe Biden is more committed than ever to beat Donald Trump. And we believe on this campaign, we are built for the close election that we are in, and we see the path forward. Perception of the president is as clear as before. It is a hardened perspective on who he is and his leadership. And they know him as President Biden, but they also know him as Joe Biden. And they know who he's fighting for. And the voters stay connected to that. And that's what matters most.
So you've heard it. Biden said it. His administration said it. Biden-Harris campaign said it. They're staying. They're focused. So what we can do is really focus. Okay. So next, Senator Elizabeth Warren was on MSNBC on the weekend on MSNBC, and she said Joe Biden is our nominee. As I said before, he has a really big decision to make. But what gives me a lot of hope right now is that if President Biden decides to step back, we have Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ready to step up to unite the party, blah, blah, blah. So I was on the campaign call with Senator Harris as they were hitting together with Kamala Harris on a plane. And so she shared absolute support for the Biden-Harris ticket. So I'm not sure what changed. I'm not sure what the message here and the narrative here is. There is no decision to make. He made the decision. And by the way, you who voted him in, all of us, made the decision in the primaries. I'm really stunned how we can neglect voters. Why is the elite, and I understand I shared yesterday the AOC clips where she said, there's public, there is leadership, and in between is that layer of elites, right? Could be lobbyists, could be elected officials, could be paid, whatnot. How can we only listen to this layer and completely neglect the public that voted in the primaries? And also, to President's point, if you wanted to run, why didn't you do it earlier? Why are you doing it now? Because you're not going to get a hold of the Biden-Harris campaign money. That could only be inherited, if you will, by Kamala Harris. And as we heard yesterday from AOC and many sources, that even she is not satisfying people's beliefs. And allegedly, again, I have not heard it, I have not seen it, and I have not read it specifically from Pelosi, that she is saying, well, we should be having just a Wild Wild West at the DNC in August and just have everybody pretty much audition for sort of like Miss Universe type of American president crap. Again, read on 1968 convention, what happened there, and then also add to it social media and the media situation that we're in. So it would be, excuse me, but a shit show on steroids. Former President Clinton, Secretary Clinton are all supporting Biden as reported. Yes, absolutely. They actually have an official fundraiser, and they're calling officially on the fundraisers and those who are withholding money from the Biden-Harris campaign, and also unofficially. So on the background, they're also working on doing so. 14 million voters. Yes, exactly. That's my point. Money has to be taken out of politics. And see, that's my point too. Because I think since we have so many billionaires, and this is pretty much like a private PAC, right? Why do we allow billionaires to donate towards any candidate? Because if that is not putting your thumb on scale, what else is? Why is it not only grassroots? Because also that would lower the cost of running a campaign. For instance, today, Kamala Harris is in Provincetown, and I'm going to share some quotes and information about that event, which is private. There's no cameras and no photos. But, and she raised $2 million, and it's sort of disregarded. Oh, it's just $2 million. Why is it so expensive? For instance, Biden-Harris campaign is spending $50 million monthly on social media. Where does it go to? Zuckerberg's, the owner of this platform, Twitter-ish. That goes back to that. And I will guide you through more information as to what is actually happening on background. So let's continue with this one. Did I miss one comment? Yes, exactly. It goes in ads, but ultimately it goes in ads to what? To Facebook, to Instagram, to X, Twitter, right? Where else does it go to? And Google, of course, too. So, so today, New York Times in their morning newsletter, where is it? Okay, so they have announced that a Democratic group urging Biden to drop out will begin airing ads in Washington and Delaware, where Biden is isolating with COVID. You saved democracy in 2020, the ad says. Now you have a chance to do it again. So we're talking about the pass the torch situation, where they're saying that Biden should be stepping out. Now, New York Times calls it a Democratic coalition or Democratic PAC. Now, quoting David Earl Williams III, who's following me, and I follow him as well, please follow him, who shared the following, citing numerous sources, and we're going to dig through it. The source of Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, Campaign for Accountability, and the New Republic. And we're going to go through those sources too. So Pass the Torch PAC, which involves Steve Schmidt, a Republican strategist. Schmidt, upon instruction of donors like Tom Strickler, and I want you to remember the name Tom Strickler for later, has been promoting a narrative suggesting that President Biden and Vice President Harris should step down from running for re-election. Additionally, exercise caution, or he says, exercise caution regarding discredited pollsters like Nate Silver, who was recently hired by Polymarket. Polymarket is a crypto-based prediction market platform that allows users to place bets on world events and is backed by venture capital firm Founders Fund. Founders Fund, led by Peter Thiel, who is in cahoots with the owner of X and everybody else, the billionaires club, so to speak, who are pledging allegiance to, of course, Trump and Vance ticket. Founders Fund, led by Peter Thiel, is heavily investing in Polymarket, even as a key U.S. regulator intensifies efforts to restrict activity on such platforms. Thiel has also made significant contributions to J.D. Vance's U.S. Senate campaign and played a pivotal role in securing Vance's position on the VP ticket with Trump. So, these are just a few individuals interconnected working against our democracy and the will of voters. Don't allow them to undermine your democratic values. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and empower yourself with knowledge. So with that in mind, let's review a couple of headlines, right? Peter Thiel VC firm backs election betting with Polymarket investment. And you just heard what Polymarket is doing for Nate Silver's polling. Polymarket hires Nate Silver after taking $265 million of bets on U.S. election. CFA asks FEC to investigate Steve Schmidt. Dean Phillips' campaign for illegal coordination, and mega donors are plotting how best to change Biden's mind. So those pollsters and Pass the Torch is not the Democratic PAC. It is funded essentially by the same billionaires PAC that is in the open donating to Trump and speaking out at the RNC. You saw all those individuals there. So that is just a fact. Okay, so let's check. We're in the moment of deciding whether we want to fight for democracy. Yes. And we're going to talk about it too. Yeah, okay. That's who voted. Yes. And it's supposed to be one person, one vote. Citizens United made it more money, more votes. Exactly. The For the People Act had campaign finance reform, public funding, etc. Exactly. Absolutely. Pass the torch really seems like psyops. Exactly. Yep. Pass the torch is a pile of manure trumpets. Trickler is the one who threatens Democratic lawmakers. Absolutely. Yes, agree. So let's continue. Also, conservative Bill Ackman. Let's see him. Here we go. So Bill Ackman has been reportedly funding the initiative as well as this initiative as well. So he is also funding the Pass the Torch campaign. And he publicly also endorses Trump in the US presidential race, which is, again, connected to the same billionaires club. By the way, this was reported by Sophie Chia. Thank you so much for this. So, and then American intelligence professional Eric Garland has shared that the new Pass the Torch ads trying to get Joe Biden to quit are financed by a former FEC violator. Here you go. So FEC violator is registered, you see here, July 9th, 2024. And they are using, for messaging, a cryptocurrency ad agency, Myosin. So it says that the Myosin, or however you pronounce it, reportedly works with Ripple. Here you go. A company with a full decade of trouble with agencies that track terrorism financing. Okay, you following me? So this is the Pass the Torch. For their ads, they're using this cryptocurrency ads agency, Myosin, which is connected to Ripple. And Ripple is a company with a decade of trouble with agencies that track terrorism financing. So far, so good. Any questions, please ask me. Next, you would wonder why now anchors are speaking out against Biden. Why suddenly on CNN, CBS, and everywhere else? Why are they so against Biden and asking him to pass the torch, so to speak? So let's review one thing here. So if you know, WME is a talent agency. And they represent different actors and different personalities, public figures, as well as also anchors. So MSNBC's Simone Sanders and CNN's Caitlin Collins jumped to WME. Caitlin Collins left the agent that she shared with Don Lemon post their debacle with the morning show on CNN, and so she went to WME. So the WME broker, Henry Reich, I grew up in Germany, so apologies for reading those names in the German way. So he represented a murderer's row of anchors for 35 years with experience navigating the news business. So in this article, he weighed in on the rise of streaming, the death of CNN Plus, and his client, Alex Wagner's triumphant comeback 7 years after MSNBC canned her show. So this is who worked on replacing Rachel Maddow. Okay, so WME. Now remember the Strickler guy. So Tom Strickler, a founder of the Hollywood talent agency WME, said he had recently met in Los Angeles with Senator Martin Heinrich, Democrat of New Mexico. If you don't publicly call for Biden to step aside, Mr. Strickler said, he told the Democrats team on Thursday morning last week, "You're not getting a dime from me." Mr. Strickler said that he had also been planning to give the maximum legal amount in August to each of the 7 most vulnerable Democratic Senate candidates. You follow? But that, as of now, he would not be supporting them because they have not broken with Mr. Biden. "It's a message that I've encouraged my friends to send as well," he said. "If you back Biden, you will lose your support. Over and out." Now, mind you, this is who represents these folks. So do we have any questions as to why they suddenly flipped? Now, if your agent says you're going to be out, you're not going to be paid, and you went from being a reporter with $50,000 a month to an anchor in studio with $350,000 a month and lucrative book deals. Now, if your agent will say that I will stop this money flow into your pocket, you suddenly flip or you quit. That depends on your dignity. Okay? So, now another hot water was prepared for J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance, the newly picked VP for Trump, has used Venmo. Like all of us, he used Venmo. He had no problem with it. And so he, unfortunately for him, left his Venmo history open. And so today, Wired reported, actually July 19th, so yesterday, J.D. Vance left his Venmo public. Here's what it shows. The Republican VP nominee's Venmo network reveals connections ranging from the architects of Project 2025 to enemies of Donald Trump. Okay, and now we're reading. More than 200 people appear on Vance's Venmo friends list. Among them is Amalia Halikias, government relations director at the Heritage Foundation that wrote the Project 2025, the conservative think tank coordinating the controversial Project 2025. So is an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, among many other lawyers for the Department of Justice, frequently decried by Trump loyalists as enemies and a part of the deep state. So are Jeff Flake, the famously anti-Trump former Arizona senator and current ambassador for Turkey, lobbyists from organizations like Government Strategies Group, people affiliated with other conservative think tanks like Hoover Institution and the American Enterprise Institute, journalists and media personalities like Bari Weiss, and former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, and tech executive from Anthropic and AOL. So this is this article. You can share, link to it. It's on Wired. It was published yesterday. So that's J.D. Vance. And I want to draw your attention to if you're receiving any messages from Stop MAGA, right? I showed those messages yesterday. It's on my X account. Go check them out. That call you for voting for anybody aside Biden. Biden is dropping out. Pick a candidate. You click on it. It goes to some Stop stopmaga.com, something like that. So this website, and thank to you guys who commented on it, is registered in the UK. My guesstimation is it is connected to Russian cyber companies that are using just any resource to hide the sort of for us the ways to find out that they're in Russia, which is very usual. Why a UK firm would be doing that? If you recall the connection between Russia meddling in the election when Trump was elected, it was through a company registered in the UK, by the way, that was buying ads on Facebook. So anybody can use VPN and connect to it. So my point is only block them, don't react in any way, and report as spam. Okay. So another caution that I want to ask you to exercise. So I'm not sure whether it was a joke or not, but Newmax's Ryan McBath, who's an Intel analyst and software cyber guy, he shared this tweet today. He said, so after Friday's events with CrowdStrike, how many of you are thinking of switching to Kaspersky now? And then people start asking for coupons and, I want to draw your attention that Kaspersky firm was sanctioned by our treasury because it's a lab leadership. Kaspersky lab leadership was sanctioned in response to continued cybersecurity risks. So today's action against the leadership of Kaspersky Lab underscores our commitment to ensure the integrity of our cyber domain and to protect our citizens against malicious cyber threats, said Undersecretary of the Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Brian Nelson. The United States will take action where necessary to hold accountable those who would seek to facilitate or otherwise enable these activities. So again, whether the Macbeth gentleman was joking or not, because some people say, yes, it is a Russian company, Kaspersky, but moreover, it has been sanctioned by our Treasury Department as a company that just facilitates cyber attacks. So if you're using Kaspersky, I strongly encourage you not to do so. And now, speaking of Russian regime, I want to show you what it actually looks like in action. Because we talk about, Russia bombing Ukrainian citizens. And by the way, when my family talks to their friends in Ukraine or family in Ukraine, extended family, that remained and didn't want to leave, there is just such a disaster that even on a personal level, if you think about it, they live in, let's say, 20, 30-story buildings. And there's no electricity, there is no water, hence there is no, and they have heat waves too. So there's no water, there is no AC, they can't even flush the toilet. So the floors are now regulating with each other who goes to the toilet when, and people are just, the life is just abysmal. And so aside from being killed and being hurt and landing up in the hospital or worse, deceased, people who are living in the conditions in Ukraine are just suffering as much. And so then today, talking about crimes happening just in the open and just being advertised. I shared this video, it's just 19 seconds, but I want you to look at it, how Russia was literally deporting children from Ukraine, from the occupied territories, that Trump is negotiating to give up more territories to Russia and whatnot, right? We're going to talk about it soon. How they take them from their parents and just fly them to Moscow, and it's going to be for sale, for adoption. And by the way, their politicians like to adopt from a website a Ukrainian kid and parade the Ukrainian kid around for the government and have interviews and let the kid say that, oh my God, I'm so happy this auntie just, because otherwise they hit the kid, right? So all of this is happening in the open. So take a look. So sad. If you look at the kids' eyes, if you just realize what physically is happening to them, That's just nerve-wracking. That is as sad as and as disgusting and hurtful. There are no normal words to even describe this. But on another note, Zelensky spoke to Trump yesterday. I shared the tweet. Let's discuss it. As you see, I'm not enthusiastic about it, but it is what it is. He said, I spoke with Trump to congratulate him on the Republican nomination and condemn the shocking assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. I wished him strength and absolute safety in the future. I noted the vital bipartisan and bicameral American support for protecting our nation's freedom and independence. Ukraine will always be grateful to the United States for its help in strengthening our ability to resist Russian terror. Russian attacks on our cities and villages continue every day. We agreed with President Trump. Hello, where's former President Trump? To discuss at a personal meeting what steps can make peace fair and truly lasting. And here's my question to Zelensky's team. What are you even talking about? He says in the open, there will be no dime for Ukraine. I will give it up. And Zelensky even commented in the interview with BBC, and I shared a snippet yesterday where he said, look, whoever promises you, Trump or any other person, to end the war in 24 hours, it would mean somebody has to give up something. So what is the price and who is paying for it? And if you guys don't think that you will be paying for it, I have no words for you. And so it was shared today. Sergei Nikiforov, spokesman for Volodymyr Zelensky, said that this on the air of the telethon. Trump said a very interesting thing. This is his signature quote. Don't believe the fake news that my victory in the elections can be beneficial to Russia. Nikiforov also said that during the phone conversation, Zelensky and Trump discussed their future meeting, but how it will take place, where and when is still unknown. And before it's too late, maybe we should be discussing the Logan Act. Maybe we should be discussing that it's just unnecessary, to say the least, where the current administration is providing aid and fighting for you. And this guy is, first of all, former president, has no authority. There's a questionable whether he will be a president. So if he were elected, yeah, I understand if after that we would play in terms of Ukraine would play double diplomacy and try to, establish connections. So we'll be doing other countries. If that happens. But why are you doing this now? You meddled in this thing already last time. And then Trump put you in a position where you should have been providing dirt on Biden to get any type of aid. Why are you doing it? And I understand that people say, well, it's another lie. It's another media lying about Zelensky. This is his tweet. This is his spokesperson. I do not understand it. Hence, I have questions. I support Ukraine. I'm a Ukrainian-born citizen, American citizen. I have family that got hurt. I rescued my family from Ukraine. So I totally understand it. But I don't understand double-faced politics. So he's being a politician. Exactly. He's being diplomatic. I wouldn't do it, but I understand why. Yes, I was wondering if it violated that. Okay. I mean, it's his country. He is president. So let's see how that goes. My point is only to point it out. Yep. Okay. So, but what Ukraine did in terms of a good move, and by the way, this is what Zelensky shared about, he identified Russia's only advantage in the war against Ukraine. He said their intelligence is weaker, their diplomacy has turned into simple bribes, lies, or threats. The only competitive advantage Putin still has is a large stockpile of Soviet-era weapons, money, and a complete disregard for human life. Hints on something, by the way. And what Ukraine actually did, so they cut off the Russian oil supply. So Russian oil would go through Ukraine to Budapest, to Hungary. And so now Ukraine cut it off. And Budapest fears a supply shortage since 70% of oil imports come from Russia. So if Hungary were to release some of emergency strategic reserves, this would last only for 90 days, Mr. Orban, who was visiting Moscow, visiting Beijing, visiting everything before he came to NATO. And by the way, in the European Union Commission, they're discussing that since he's presiding over it for 5 months, they would not be voting and attending any meeting that he's organizing. Now, UN, this is a hint for you. Why don't you do it with Russia? Russia is presiding over UN. I got an update. New meeting scheduled for 3 p.m. on Monday. Russia will be talking about peace and was it territorial integrity? Russia is the one to talk about it. But members can do their part. You see now in European Commission, if you don't show up to meeting, you don't vote doesn't pass. Because they need unanimous vote. So it is in the hands of allies, right? Now, I want to share with you a video by Dr. Timothy Snyder. I hope you know him. If not, please get acquainted. Where he shares, he has been sharing the narrative that we're now in 1938. So we're not yet in 1941, but 1938, and how it actually started. And he connects it also to Hungary, right? And so listen to him why it is important for Ukraine to win and what should be happening after. Because in case, and I have been talking about it nonstop, in case Ukraine were to fall, then Russia would utilize Ukrainian resources, the people, the equipment, the money, the aid that has been flowing there now to go further and invade further countries. And I was talking about it as recent as yesterday. But please listen to him.
Continuing with the analogy, the thing which people forget is that when 1939 comes, when Germany invades Poland, it's invading Poland with the resources of Czechoslovakia, with Czechoslovak wealth, Czechoslovak arms, Slovak soldiers, different geographical position. If there is a wider war after Ukraine is, God forbid, defeated, then it will be a different Russia with a different level of resources from a different geographical position. We won't be in the situation we're in now, where it seems like the Ukrainians are holding Russia back. We'll be in a different situation where we're facing a much stronger and much more confident Russia. So as far as holding back this wider war, it's a very simple equation. The West has to do whatever it can to make sure that Ukraine wins.
Meanwhile, the West is a wild, wild West in terms of us, because we're fighting the commander-in-chief that is uniting NATO, uniting the world in the fight against Ukraine, for Ukraine, in the fight against Russia, in the fight against everything that might happen in the Indo-Pacific basin. And still, we're facing just a shit show, for lack of a better word. But for kicks and giggles, I want you to watch this video. I don't know who did it, but it sort of describes what is happening between Biden, the media, and the Democrats and those anonymous sources. Watch this.
You know what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! The show goes on. This is my home. They're gonna need a fucking wrecking ball to take me out of here. They're gonna need to send in the National Guard, a fucking SWAT team, because I ain't going nowhere.
So whenever you feel sad or upset, just watch this clip. That will pump you up. So let's talk about VP Harris. She's today in Provincetown for a private campaign event. I want to offer a readout. I shared it on X, but perhaps you didn't have enough time to read it. I'll be very quick. So upon arrival, she was greeted by several congressmen and also representatives, House representatives. Take a look on my X account. It's a whole list. I don't want to bore you with this. So it has been shared that the event is hosted by Brian Raffanelli and is expected to draw more than 800 attendees, raising $2 million. So there were 1,000 attendees. This I already know for sure. Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Governor Maura Healey, Senator Ed Markey, and Boston Mayor Michelle Wu are expected to attend, and they did. And then actress Jennifer Coolidge, Billy Porter, and others were attending, and also performing was Adrienne Warren. So from the report, I offered a full breakdown on the X account. You can read its entire thing. It also will be in the newsletters if you decide to join me. But here are two quotes that I thought were important. Kamala Harris raised her hand and said, "I'm testifying as a first-hand witness," she said, raising her hand in the air. "With every decision Biden makes in Oval Office, I'm telling you, he thinks about how it will impact everyday working Americans." So, long speech, and then she closes with, she closed out by discussing her campaign manager from when she was running for DA in San Francisco in 2003, Jim Rivaldo, who had previously run campaigns for Harvey Milk. She says, quote, "He would talk about the early days being with Harvey and the beginning of the movement for equality. And he'd say, first, you must recognize what you're up against. And know that those who oppose progress will always try to suggest that a movement for freedom is somehow centricity and that it undermines who we are as a nation or our traditions," she said. But what we know is that it strengthens who we are as a nation when we fight to expand right rather than restrict, end quote. So it goes to show how weathered both Kamala Harris and obviously President Biden are. They have experience. She's been a prosecutor. She knows, she sees through. Do you think she doesn't know who the Billionaires Club is in California? Do you think why all of them, literally one by one, are leaving California and going to Texas? This team is weathered. They know what they're doing. It's not as easy to knock them out and knock them down. So let's stay cool, calm, and collected. Okay? So next, Pete Buttigieg was yesterday on a late night show where he truly dunked on JD Vance. And I want you to watch this video. It's 2 minutes, 56 seconds. It's really worth your time. So enjoy.
The other thing you get to do at a convention is roll out your vice presidential candidate, which in this case was JD Vance.
Yeah.
I know him a little bit.
What do you think of him?
Look, we're from the same generation. We're both from the Midwest, different parts of the Midwest.
Right.
I know a lot of guys like JD Vance. I've run into a lot of guys like him. Not so much when I was growing up in Indiana.
Thiel.
But,
Peter Thiel is his big backer.
yeah, for sure. And,
Okay, if people don't know who that is, he started PayPal.
Yeah.
He's gay. He's a billionaire. I mean, I've had a couple of people who knew you were coming on this week said, ask Pete what he thinks about Peter Thiel being so in love with JD Vance, who is flatly against gay marriage.
So I think it's a profound contradiction, but maybe it's not that complicated. I know there are a lot of folks who say, what's going on with some of these Silicon Valley folks veering into Trump world with JD Vance and backing Trump? What are they thinking? Silicon Valley is supposed to be, they're supposed to care about climate. They're supposed to be, I don't know, pro-science and rational and libertarians. So normally libertarians don't like authoritarians. What's up with that? I think it's actually, we've made it way too complicated. It's super simple. These are very rich men who have decided to back the Republican Party that tends to do good things for very rich men.
Couldn't agree more.
And by the way, that's kind of what you're getting with. That's kind of what you're getting with JD, right? So I knew a lot of people like him when I got to Harvard. I found a lot of people like him who would say whatever they needed to get ahead. And 5 years ago, that seemed like being the anti-Trump Republican. So that's what he was. Talked about how he was unfit, how he was cynical, called him an opioid, which is kind of a weird thing to say about a person, but definitely a really... But I mean, for somebody whose identity is that they're connected to Appalachia, which has an opioid crisis, that really is the darkest thing you could possibly say about Donald Trump, at least in public. But behind the scenes, apparently, he's actually calling him Hitler, right? Seriously. 5 years later, the way he gets ahead is that he's the greatest guy since sliced bread. And I actually watched this exact same process with somebody else I got to know in my days in the Midwest, which was my former governor, Mike Pence. who I watched start out as an evangelical Christian who cared about rectitude and family values, and then get on board with a guy who was mixed up with a porn star, make excuses for him, so that he could have power. And then he did. He got 4 glorious years, I guess, as Vice President of the United States. And it ended on the west front of the Capitol with Trump supporters proposing that he be hanged for using the one shred of integrity he still had to stand up to an attempt to overthrow the government.
Right.
So I guess, maybe not as a politician, but as a human being, what I'll say is that I hope things work out a little bit better for J.D. Vance than they did for Mike.
Bravo. That's how you do it. So VP Harris will travel to Milwaukee on Tuesday for a campaign event. I will report on it extensively, of course. And let's talk a bit about President. So President Biden will visit Chicago in late July for a big fundraiser, just days before the crucial virtual roll call vote expected to secure his nomination. This move confirms President Biden's commitment to the presidential race with no intentions of stepping down. Here you have it. Also, President Biden will travel to Georgia and Texas once permitted by his doctor. That's what I shared earlier. And now let's talk a bit about the actual news. So, in actual news, President Biden's doctor issued an update. I shared it before. I will have a quick readout. So the President Biden completed his 6th dose of Paxlovid this morning. He is still experiencing a loose, non-productive cough and hoarseness, but his symptoms continue to improve steadily. His pulse, blood pressure, respiratory rate, and temperature remain absolutely normal. His oxygen saturation continues to be excellent on room air. His lungs remain clear. The variant that he got was confirmed KP 2.3. Which accounts for approximately 33.3% of new infections in the United States. The president continues to tolerate treatment well and will continue Paxlovid as planned. He continues to perform all of the presidential duties, and the doctor will continue to keep us updated with any changes in his condition or treatment plan. That's how transparency looks like. And we're going to talk about Trump, by the way, and the doctor who treated him in a second, too. So, other actual news. President Biden spoke today with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. I shared it yesterday. She has been reelected as the commissioner. The leaders reaffirmed their commitment to a strong U.S.-EU relationship and to tackling the world's biggest challenges together. They also discussed support for Ukraine and efforts to hold Russia to account for its aggression. And of course, President also congratulated her on her reelection. Another actual news, so many actual newses today. President and VP issued heartfelt statement on the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee, calling her a true friend and a patriot and remembering her for her achievements and character. So I want to offer a readout from the newsletter that I shared overnight. Congressman Jackson Lee was a prominent figure in the U.S. House of Representatives, serving as the Democratic Chief Deputy Whip. She was a senior member on 3 congressional committees, Judiciary, Homeland Security, and the Budget Committee. Notably, she was the first female ranking member of the Judiciary Subcommittee for Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, which she chaired. Congresswoman Jackson Lee authored and led the sponsorship of the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, marking the establishment of the first new federal holiday in 38 years. And so our heartfelt condolences go out to Congresswoman Jackson Lee's family, friends, colleagues, and constituents during this difficult time. If you're not familiar with this hero, I truly encourage you to Google Congressman Jackson Lee and listen to her speeches. And most importantly, read her very last tweet that she shared very recently, encouraging the nation to unite, for Democrats to unite together and have President Biden's back, because that is our choice and it's our only choice. So too soon, gone too soon. Now, how do you think MAGA reacted to this? And I will not be reading this out. You will be reading it out for yourself. I don't want to have these words. I'm going to check comments while you do so. This is Laura Loomer, the biggest MAGA person here, one of the biggest ones, and she's running for representative. And you can read whatever she said. I don't want to do it. An update for an actual doctor. Yes, exactly. So I hope you read this. I want to offer her specifically this help to call 988 or text 988 if you or someone you know needs crisis support. And she certainly needs crisis support. Help is available, Laura. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Listen to your president. Laura. Disgusting. So if you read what Laura wrote, right, this is not just her only, she's not the only one in the Megaville, as they call them now, according to that music video with Amber Rose and all that I shared. They're going through a list of isms that they're trying to add through Project 2025, through anything else. And so it reminded me on a video where George W. Bush was reminding United States that we might be facing the period where we would be accepting or going through a phase of learning about the isms. Take a look.
I do believe there will be a rational immigration policy eventually passed. I think there's going to have to be some time. What's interesting about our country, if you study history, is that there are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and its evil twin protectionism, and its evil triplet nativism. So if you study the 20s, for example, there was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? Well, what happened in Europe mattered eventually because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. In other words, let's throw up barriers. And there was an immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. And my point to you is we've been through this kind of period of isolationism, protectionism, nativism. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period.
Can you imagine, or could you ever imagine we would be quoting George W. Bush for wisdom and kindness and all of it? Here we are. I want to show you a video. So Trump's, and I have to pull up a file, so give me a second. Trump's health and medical reports, or actually the lack of it, has been raised finally in the media. And so here's the first video of them actually raising it. Let me pull this up real quick. Here we go.
President is saying happened here. He had a high-velocity bullet from an AR-15 style weapon shoot directly at his head, missed penetrating his skull, but actually impacting the surrounding tissues, in this case his ear. That's what we're being told. That's serious, Alex. I come from a military background. Right? You know, that predisposes in some cases to a traumatic brain injury. Over time, we may not see initial symptoms up front. There could have been signs of bleeding that maybe were not present on that initial CT scan that apparently was normal per whatever report we got, that summary report. There's a lot of potential impacts here that can impact his functioning if he's the next president, to his balance, to his hearing, again, that can manifest over time. So this is a big deal. Tangential gunshot wound. If this was indeed a bullet injury to the ear, this is a big deal. Tangential gunshot wounds, we see them again all the time in the armed forces. They can have secondary impacts. Are
there particular things you'd want to know about his treatment, either immediately after the assassination attempt or now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, first of all, Eric Trump has said that there is no stitches needed. That's a big deal, because the implication then, Alex, is, well, gosh, they were able to control the bleeding from an impact that somehow took off a part of his ear. We're saying from an AR-15 style weapon. The kinetic impact to the body from that type of bullet, from an AR-15 style weapon, is massive. So if that was really a bullet injury, it should cause significant soft tissue damage. I want to say it would be helpful for the American public to understand what was the degree of injury. Were they able to control the bleeding without stitches, just to confirm what Eric Trump is saying? What was that process like? Did they use things like Dermabond or Steri-strips to help? It would be helpful to understand the extent of injury, absolutely. And then did they do a cranial full neurologic exam? Is his hearing and is his balance, are they intact? We don't know.
Do you have, I mean, I do want to ask, just because the president talked at length about it. He said the ears are the bloodiest part of the body. There was a large volume of blood. He made note of that last night. Is that true?
No, I heard the same thing. I was watching as well, and I don't know what anatomy textbook him and his docs are using, but that struck me as a bit nonsensical. You can say the lips or above the eyes, frankly, are more vascular. Certainly the heart is the most vascular part of the body, so if that were to bleed, that'd be quite bloody. It was a random comment. It's not rooted in any actual evidence, but from a surface wound standpoint, any facial injury, the scalp highly vascular, lips, of course. That's frankly more bloody. So, it was a.
Okay. So all this blood everywhere. Yesterday I showed you the entire speech, according to Trump, what did happen. And then we reviewed photos that the hand was not bloody and blood was not everywhere. And you see, I don't know, maybe I'm blind, but I see the ear. I see parts of it being taken away. But here's the doctor who actually treated Trump. Here you go.
The former president was treated at Butler Memorial Hospital. He did not require stitches.
When I heard the call, you're thinking worst case scenario.
Dr. David Rottinghouse says his staff coordinated with the Secret Service well in advance of the rally.
It was surreal. You prepare for things like this. You don't necessarily prepare to receive a president or former president.
A law enforcement source confirmed to CBS News that just before the assassination attempt against Trump, the gunman's father called 911, concerned about his son and his whereabouts.
So it was not a gunshot. It was, from what I hear, it was a scratch. I don't know why you don't release the medical report, because now we know who treated him. Now he has been interviewed. I'm sure this doctor is now paid to shut up, for the lack of a better word. And why don't you release a medical report? And why actually Megaville folks are not demanding it? Because if you love your president so much, if you want him to be healthy and rule for the 4 years and more, according to Project 2025, why don't you check up on him? Don't you love him enough? This is my question. Seriously, was Ketchup. Well, I worked on movie sets and there are other things, but but this is Trump today arriving on his golf course at Bedminster.
What an entrance! Just like you.
So I guess this music here is his hail to the chief. Every time I'm at the White House, I'm already like da, 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 da. So now, who was not with him is Melania Trump. She was just there at the RNC, just at the speech, very limited appearance. But check out what happened right after the speech. Here's the video. So much love. Awkward also, because yesterday somebody asked me about Gantz and his new face and whatnot. Here's a fun video about Gantz guy and Kim Kim G. There's Kim K, there's this Kim G. Check out them before and afters. Look at this. After. This was before, when she was the first lady of San Francisco, and this is after. Whoa, what happened? Okay. Okay, interesting fact also, what I saw. When it comes to the Trump family, let's check some comments. Guilfoyle. I hope we don't have to. Okay, Guilfoyle. Foil, let's get, okay, got it. Thank you so much, appreciate it. See, I'm learning. Okay, so here's an interesting fact. The Trump family has no record of military service in 5 generations, 2 world wars, and over 150 years. As an interesting fact, especially when you consider him saying that he will be fighting for military families. Does he even understand how military families feel like and what do they actually go through? Nope, I doubt it. So today is a Trump rally. As we speak here, he was set to speak at 5 p.m. I don't know. I didn't check on it. I'll check on it and I'll report on it. But this is before the rally. So thousands gather for Trump's first rally since shooting. Thousands of people have gathered for Donald Trump's first rally in public since a gunman shot him in the ear last week in an attempted assassination in Pennsylvania. Trump is scheduled to address a crowd in Grand Rapids, Michigan today around 5 on Saturday, but people had already lined up for the rally in the morning hours. A queue stretched from for about 3 miles outside the Vandell Arena after the doors opened around 1 p.m. EST. A little more than 2 hours before Trump and his new running mate, J.D. Vance, were set to take the stage, the arena, which has a capacity of 12,000 people, had to start closing its doors. So you never knew that because he had issues filling up the seats. And I shared you those advertisements where the people were paid $75 or $80 in Arizona to attend the rally. So I guess the assassination attempt and potential to be a part of it is a lucrative thing. People are flooding this. So since he is in Michigan, the governor wanted to welcome him with some grace and a very straightforward message. So here we go. Check it out.
Welcome to Michigan, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Here are 3 things you should know about our great state. 1, here we protect reproductive freedom. We're not interested in your national abortion ban. 2, we always find ways to put money back in Michiganders' pockets by lowering the cost of prescription drugs, education, housing, and so much more. And 3, we're a proud union state, and UAW workers here still remember when Donald Trump broke his promises to Michigan workers. Oh, and one more thing. Michigan is going to reject your extreme Project 2025 agenda. Have a good trip.
Have a good trip. And so before I let you go and to cleanse the palate, oh, that was slick and smart. Yeah, that's good. That's how you use social media appropriately. Exactly. Not to intensify anything, but debunk and be classy about it. Love it. So before I let you go, let's review. There's 4 minutes. I have to pull it up. A speech, the very last speech that Ronald Reagan shared as president, because that is where Republican Party was. Because whatever we're discussing now, the MAGA circus, the cult convention, this is not really what was there. Hence, when people say that I'm biased and why am I pro this and anti this, I'm just delivering facts. I don't know how you can be pro something here. This is quite obvious. My job is to be factual and ethical. And I just don't know how else to do it. I understand when it was Republican Democratic Party and we had, misunderstood. Well, we could not agree on abortion, on the tax, on different policies. But this is beyond policies. This is just anti-human at this point. So take a look at this speech by Ronald Reagan, just with an open mind, to cleanse the palate and to see what the party was before all this. There we go.
And since this is the last speech that I will give as president, I think it's fitting to leave one final thought, an observation about a country which I love. It was stated best in a letter I received not long ago. A man wrote me and said, "You can go to live in France, but you cannot become a Frenchman. You can go to live in Germany or Turkey or Japan, but you cannot become a German, a Turk, or Japanese. But anyone from any corner of the earth can come to live in America and become an American." Yes, the torch of Lady Liberty symbolizes our freedom and represents our heritage, the compact with our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors. It is that lady who gives us our great and special place in the world. For it's the great life force of each generation of new Americans that guarantees that America's triumph shall continue unsurpassed into the next century and beyond. Other countries may seek to compete with us, but in one vital area, as a beacon of freedom and opportunity that draws the people of the world, no country on earth comes close. This, I believe, is one of the most important sources of America's greatness. We lead the world because, unique among nations, we draw our people, our strength, from every country and every corner of the world. And by doing so, we continuously renew and enrich our nation. While other countries cling to the stale past, here in America, we breathe life into dreams, we create the future, and the world follows us into tomorrow. Thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier. This quality is vital to our future as a nation. If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. A number of years ago, an American student traveling in Europe took an East German ship across the Baltic Sea. One of the ship's crew members from East Germany, a man in his 60s, struck up a conversation with the American student. After a while, the student asked the man how he had learned such good English, and the man explained that he had once lived in America. He said that for over a year he'd worked as a farmer in Oklahoma and California, that he'd planted tomatoes and picked ripe melons. It was, the man said, the happiest time of his life. Well, the student, who'd seen the awful conditions behind the Iron Curtain, blurted out the question, well, why did you ever leave? I had to, he said. The war ended. The man had been in America as a German prisoner of war. Now, I don't tell this story to make the case for former POWs. Instead, I tell this story just to remind you of the magical, intoxicating power of America. We may sometimes forget it, but others do not. Even a man from a country at war with the United States, while held here as a prisoner, could fall in love with us. Those who become American citizens love this country even more. And that's why the Statue of Liberty lifts her lamp to welcome them to the Golden Door. It is bold men and women yearning for freedom and opportunity who leave their homelands and come to a new country to start their lives over. They believe in the American dream, and over they make it come true for themselves, for their children, and for others. They give more than they receive, they labor and succeed, and often they are entrepreneurs. But their greatest contribution is more than economic, because they understand in a special way how glorious it is to be an American. They renew our pride and gratitude in the United States of America, the greatest, freest nation in the world, the last best hope of man on earth.
And to your point, this is, you're reading my mind a little bit with the comments. When I'm watching this video, I'm missing all other people who are not white. It's like there's a whole room of white people. I can show you a picture recently in the East Room, same room where they were, at the White House, where President Biden announced the executive order on giving a chance to spouses of those who entered the United States illegally, and half are lacking this I-94 form that certifies that they entered based on visa or, they were legally here entering, that they now, past 10 years, if they're married to citizens, they can allowed now to file for green card, apply for green card without leaving the United States. And also for those who have studied here as much as I did. So for instance, when you studied in the United States, then for 2 or 3 years, you were not allowed to return to the United States before you could even accept a job. So that really limited everybody's ability to get hired, because in 3 years, nobody will remember who the heck you are, nor you will remember how America felt like. So this has changed now. So if you have job offers once you graduated here and you can have a proof that you are maybe employed and this is for you, you can apply for visas without and green cards without leaving. So I remember being in that same East room full of immigrants. You could count actually white people maybe on one hand, maybe reporters and all that kind of stuff. But it was so beautiful how everybody was crying, real crying, not a rally crying, and was grateful. And there were people who were, you know, in wheelchairs and who really put the tremendous effort to even be there. And this was just a beautiful, I think I have a video, I have pictures, I'll share it, I'll attach it to this live stream. It was beautiful, and I cried too, because that, you know, concerns me as well. I graduated in the United States. That's how I came here. And then, of course, everybody who could have been beneficial, they had to leave because there was a travel ban. You could not enter if you had graduated here. So, you know, this is touching on so many lives and on so many families and people, real people. You know, to the point I brought up Reagan just so we can hear what a Republican Party sounded like when it was Republican Party, and as much as was George W. Bush, but certainly let's not take us back. Let's not make anything great again when people were not allowed to be people and to be equal and to vote and to be here or serve the nation at the highest ranks and levels. That video is a certain proof that, you know, that was the America that is not certainly now. And when Biden-Harris administration says that we want to build our administration to represent America as is, if you look at it, if you go to the White House website and you look who is hired and who's representing, it is vivid. It is there. There are different cultures, nationalities, cultural backgrounds, races represented. It's there. As much as in Project 2025, if that kicks in, that will be just, you know, everybody would be a subgroup. And even within the white race, it would be subgroups with the Jews and the, you know, immigrants from Eastern Europe. So everybody will be divided. Divide and conquer will be the thing, you know, so. But how they acted was most important. He didn't use the Refugee Act 1980 to its fullest, instead restricting the entry of Vietnamese refugees. Yeah. So my point is, you know, there were issues, always. And America is, as they say, great experiment. If, I don't know, we don't like Michael Douglas now, but there is a good movie called Franklin on Apple TV where he just depicts the final, well, not the final, but the years when Benjamin Franklin traveled to France and started negotiating with France and England, which led to America pretty much becoming independent, becoming a country. An interesting movie based on facts. So, you know, America is a great experiment and it is growing, but what we cannot afford to do is to stop this growth and go in regression, because it has hurt so many people that are just getting rights back. We're not talking about retributions. We're not talking about anything else. Just having rights back and equality on some level. So we certainly cannot go back. This just, you know, certainly is not a good idea. So I've spoken to so many reporters, and they say, when we watched the speech, Trump's speech, and I said, oh my God, you know, is that what we have to cover for 4 years? So vote. So none of us has to see this for 4 years at the White House. This beautiful dancing and schmoozing and romancing, because that's certainly what the administration would look like. So on this rather positive negative note, I wanted to share something. This person doesn't know I'm saying it. This is not paid or nothing. So not recently, a year ago or so, I interviewed Donald G. James, who has served as an executive for NASA for over 35 years. And he wrote a book, Manners Will Take You Where Brains and Money Won't. This one, I can share a link to it. I will also share a link to our interview. It was like 45 minutes. He shared how he got employed at NASA and what he did at NASA. And he talked about also off record, how everything changes and about SpaceX intervening and sort of like the deals and commercial deals that they have to be doing now. Don't expect any politics there because this is from a year ago. We had on Onest Network, we had everything but politics. So, but it's very interesting. This read is very calming. It's very cool. He shares his story and how his mom, raised him and his brother, who is Captain Dennis D. James, to have manners, and that manners will get you into the rooms where money won't. And it's good read. I will be reading it this week and just rereading to feel calm a little bit. Just thought to share. This is not a promotion of any kind. Just my two thoughts. Okay. Now, last thing, if you are not subscribed, please join the newsletter. It's free, Onest on Substack. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching but using YouTube, please tap and subscribe. But this live is there as well. Onest Network. It's called Onest, ONEST Network on YouTube, in case something would happen with my presence on the Bird app because of everything we're discussing. Okay, so thank you so much. Please go and have a good weekend. We're not going to see each other tomorrow because I'll follow my advice and go touch grass, the floor, I mean. And we meet on Monday with everything. I'll cover the Trump rally and with clips if there's anything different from the RNC speech. And expect your newsletter on Monday and expect the full coverage on Monday at 8 p.m. Okay? All righty. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure per usual. Share it with anybody who is interested in facts. And we see each other on Monday. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Olga. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and stay sane, most importantly. Okay? All right. Happy weekend.